And so the earlier you can really identify your purpose and passion, and if the work you're doing is aligning with that, or if you feel out of alignment, then what can you do to fill in that gap?
Amy Vetter, thank you for being on my show. How are you?
Great. Well, thanks for having me.
Really, really great to have you. I'm very excited for this. I think that it's going to be fascinating to hear about, your journey from being an accountant and discovering yoga and now impacting a lot of people's lives through your presentations, your books. You've won multiple awards and multiple TEDx speaker. So I'm very, very excited to mainly get to know you better and learn a little bit about how you came to where you came to and what drove you to those areas. So maybe you can take me all the way back to your accounting days and who's Amy Vetter and what are you all about?
So I would say all the way back in my accounting days, I didn't know who Amy Vetter was. So my grandfather was a CPA. And from a very young age, I was saying I was going to be a CPA because I had known my grandfather was a CPA.
Just for everybody, CPA is?
A certified public accountant.
Okay, which means it's for individuals, right? You're helping individuals file their taxes and get their money.
Well, it can be for businesses.
Okay.
So a certified public accountant can do audit where you're auditing companies or you're doing tax returns, or it can be individuals as well. So I like you just said, at 12 years old, how would you know what a CPA meant?
Right.
So I basically was doing it because I was being told about it, and that was my path on my journey. So I was very focused on that. At the same time, when I was younger, through high school, I painted, I played violin and viola. I was very artistic. But once business school and accounting school and your early career comes up, I had to let those things go because the total focus was being successful in the career that I had chosen. And that's one of the reasons I say, starting out in your career, I don't know that you really know who you are. You think you know who you are.
Right.
You think you know who you want to be until you kind of hit these moments in your career of, you achieve certain milestones that you wanted to achieve. And then you're like, wait, am I happy? Are these the things that I really wanted? Did I even question what I wanted, explore what I wanted?
So when was that moment? When was that moment for you?
When I became a partner in a CPA firm. So that was kind of a moment I had been working toward. I was 32. And when I became partner, that was a moment of like, wow, I'm not as happy as I thought I would be. And I really started doing a lot of assessment. I had started yoga at that time, mainly because after I had my second child, I had gotten sick. So I wasn't allowed to do many of the types of workouts I was used to doing. So I was only allowed to do yoga. And as a type A personality, that wasn't an answer I really wanted. But I started really enjoying it, but also it was very painful for me. Like I'd go to a yoga class and cry and not know where that was even coming from.
Wow.
But then I'd keep coming back. And, I think there's a lot of fear around practices like that because you're alone with your mind. And then it starts taking you places and you have to explore it. You become a researcher of yourself. Right. And that really became the beginning of my journey. I also started seeing a therapist at that time in my life, which I think is really important. We often talk about business coaches and things that are professional, but not necessarily the personal coaches, therapists, things that we need as well from an emotional perspective.
For a long time, I've been saying that, people go to the gym 3-4 times a week to work on their body, but they're not even willing to spend an hour to go talk to a person to work on their inner muscles, right? So I completely resonate with what you're saying. But going back to this idea of being a researcher on your own journey. So you're starting this out when you're having this these doubts as you're entering a partnership within a large CPA firm. Now I'm trying to continue to bring this back to young entrepreneurs, young engineers, especially in the environment that I'm in, whether it's at a university or in the workforce in Palo Alto. Things are moving very, very fast, right? Things can get very, very hectic, 17, 18-hour days. The progressions seem to be sort of with no limit in the sky as long as you're willing to work very hard for them. So how is it possible for somebody, so first of all, should we be more introspective, do you think, earlier on before we hit that partnership where we then start to question things? Or is it okay to work very, very hard to that and then discover whether it fits us or not?
Wow, there's a lot in that. And there's something you said that I kind of want to stop. So I stop and pause on is, I've worked in the software industry in Palo Alto, Silicon Valley, that whole area for many, many years. And when you say success comes fast and people are working really hard, success crashes fast too. And so if you are not taking time to really get to know who you are and your whole identity is the success in quotes,
right?
You're going to crash harder if you don't know yourself at those times. The other thing that's hard about those companies and also being an entrepreneur and so forth, and especially if you have a board and you're taking investors, is you're replaceable. And so you really have to have an understanding of what makes you happy besides the work and how you can define that for yourself. And that's really what Business Balance and Bliss, what my methodology is about. The goal being bliss. And bliss, as I define it, is the maintenance of happiness. And a lot of times we look for outside reasons to be happy. So if we use your example, it's getting the next funding or, the new growth customers that you want, or, different milestones you have with the software. But that comes from the outside in, rather than trying to understand what creates joy internally in your body and how do you create that yourself each day. So when things are bad, how do you come back to that feeling in your body?
So it sounds like the analogy would be that these external forces are sort of like drugs that are feeding off of your need to use them to be happy. But as long as you don't have internal happiness, you have to have those drugs, right? Because you're not happy yourself. Whereas in the idea of this bliss of maintaining happiness, it's about how do you generate happiness through your own inner life with the things that you do have, and you don't need to rely on external sources, right?
Yeah, you identify what creates happiness yourself, not relying on other people, other things, where you can cultivate that. And yoga doesn't have to be the thing. Meditation doesn't have to be the thing. You can try it. If it works for you, great. It could be running. It could be knitting. It could be taking pictures. It could be art, listening to music, reading, whatever that is. But or even going back to thinking about the things that when you were little, like when I talked about playing violin and viola and painting, how do you bring some of those things back in your life, even if you don't have time to do it? When do you go to a concert? When do you go to an art gallery and look at other people's paintings and maybe take an art class? It's things like that to get your mind. And when you release your mind like that, you actually are better at work because you start coming up with ideas just by having that time away.
Right. So then talk to me a little bit about your experience with yoga and what did yoga do to you that helped you achieve that sort of, or be on your journey to achieve bliss?
Well, and I think like anything, you have to be ready for something like that in your life, and maybe it happens accidentally like it did for me, but then I kept walking toward it rather than getting scared off of it. Where it was initially about exercising and then it started becoming so much more that I was able to apply it to my life. And, it was really getting through those hard moments of, number one, I was never a dancer. I was never anyone that can move their body. Like you went into a yoga class and you're like, wow, look at the stuff they're doing. And I had to let that go of like, I am okay if I'm not perfect at this. This is not what, is my career. I'm doing this
it's a
for
little
fun.
hard for a type A personality to do.
Totally. And part of the problem as an adult, whatever you choose, whether it's yoga or something else, is we expect to be perfect at it the moment we walk in, versus we know even in our own careers, it took us a long time to be good at what we're doing and to develop that expertise. So we have to have patience with ourselves to learn that new skill and not be hard on ourselves. And that's a really hard thing to do. But when we learn to do it outside of work, it's something we can bring into work as well, that not only helps us, but helps us as a leader with the people around us too.
Right. Okay. And talk to me a little bit about the books that you've written about these subjects and about these different experiences.
Yeah. So I really came up with Business Balance and Bliss just to kind of make it a simplified way to think about anything that you want to kind of put in your life, because they're buckets, right? The business side is all the stressors we have, anxiety, fear, deadlines, procrastination, you name what your issue is. Everybody's got something, right? And we're facing it every day. It could be other people we work with that we have trouble with at work, whatever it may be. And it's important that we offset it. So it's business plus balance equals bliss. And the balance side of this is mindfulness and collaboration tools. So it's our human toolbox, the things that we can do ourselves to offset those stressors. So whether that means better time management with our calendar, taking breaks during the day to walk or breathe or listen to music or whatever we have to do, or learning how to listen better to others and not speak over the people that we're working with, all of the things that we can put in place ourselves without blaming the outside world in order to create bliss, that maintenance of happiness internally by the things that we can control, not expecting other people to make that shift for us.
So why is the business such a big part of it? So I get the balance and the bliss parts, but why do you think business is an important part of this formula?
Because I think that many people, if you speak to them, they're going to blame their job, their family members, the co-workers. This is why I don't feel good. I've got this really bad boss, or I'm working like crazy hours and I'm so tired and I'm so stressed out. And all these things that we say are the stressors in our life, that's the bucket. But we actually have the opportunity to control some of these things if we choose to, and not let the outside world control us. And that's really the empowering thing, is once we start practicing the little things, but once we start practicing them on a day-to-day basis, they start becoming natural. And that's breaking a habit, right? Like if even just saying every single day to your coworkers and friends how stressed you are, or how much you don't like your boss or whatever, what if you just stopped saying that? How would that change how you felt each day, and maybe change the energy that you were putting out with the people around you and to your boss that might make a little shift. You never know, so it's these things that we can identify ourselves that can shift those stressors.
So I'd also have to touch a little bit about impact. And I understand, especially in these worlds, a lot of the coaching that happens one-on-one has a lot of direct impact on the person that is learning. You might be helping, a CEO or an executive go through their life and think through with them how they can help make these adjustments to be a little bit happier. But now I'm wondering on a larger scale, because you've given countless talks and keynotes and TEDx presentations, and so many different people were impacted by them. Is there a way for you to know the impact that you're having on them, or how do you even resonate with a large crowd as you're talking about these big ideas where every person is sort of trying to adjust it into their own life?
Well, I think the way you know, my style is telling some of my own stories so that people can internalize that themselves, you know. So when I'm authentic and vulnerable and telling things that, you know, aren't necessarily great stories about myself, or when I had hard times, other people
Right.
can as well. And I think part of the world problem, right, is we only see the outside of people. And so people can make assumptions all day long about me or you, and
Right.
say, oh, you know, their life's been perfect, or, you know, things just come easy for them. And when they learn the stories behind the person, then you become more real. And it's no different when you go back into the workplace, and instead of looking at everyone from the outside, how could you get to know someone from a more human standpoint? And from a speaking perspective, you know, I can't know every single person that I make an
Of course.
impact with, but what I do know is the people that come and talk to me or message me after, or that end up wanting to take the, you know, I have an online learning program that helps them
Right.
actually implement this in their life. So people that want to take those actions. But I've seen many people, you know, post the things that they went back and started playing guitar again, or painting again, or doing these things because they got
Wow.
inspired to go do it. And that is what keeps my fire going, because I'm like, oh, okay, then what I'm doing is worth it, you know, that it's helping others. But it has to come from, I think, a very authentic place. It's not that the goal is the career. And I think that's the big
Right.
shift after your 30s. It's about purpose. And if you're younger, and you don't have purpose behind what you're doing, it can become very empty. And so the earlier you can really identify your purpose and passion, and if the work you're doing is aligning with that, or if you feel out of alignment, then what can you do to fill in that gap?
Right. So what is one tangible thing that I can take with me as I go into, you know, the office tomorrow, and try to implement, you know, some of this more well-rounded, balanced thinking and more internal introspection? What can and should I do throughout my day or throughout my week to make it a little bit easier for me?
Well, and many aren't going into offices right now, and we're,
Right
you
now,
know,
I mean,
bombarded with
like
meetings,
6 months
you
from now,
know,
yeah.
and so forth. So I think what's really important is how you man your calendar,
Mhm.
first off. So uh, I'm really a big believer that a meeting does not have to be 30 minutes. It can be 25, or instead of an hour, 50 minutes. So you can build in breaks in
Right.
between meetings to decide what you want to do on those breaks. And I call it at least taking 2 minutes to either meditate, you know, get up, walk around, do
Right.
some stretches, listen to music, whatever you need to do, so that you don't leave one meeting and then let that snowball into the next meeting. And then by the end of the day, you're so stressed out or frustrated, you don't even know if the
Right.
frustration is from that person or if it's just the snowballing from the day.
Totally. And I can imagine that now during COVID that everything is so quick, and, you know, right after this meeting, I go and I answer all these messages with the 1 minute I have before joining the next Zoom call.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit
Hard
crazy.
to stutter.
Which part of your job do you enjoy most? Is it the writing, the speaking, the meeting, the online learning? What is it?
I love what I do. I don't have I mean, I speaking, I would say obviously is the number one thing I love to do, because I love the light bulbs going on, and you can see the impact, you know, immediately, where some of the others
Right.
is a longer term thing. But I really love interacting with people, so most of my job is
Right.
that.
Okay, Amy, first of all, I want to thank you for being so generous with your time and for being on the show. I truly appreciate it. I know how busy you are. And the last question that I want to ask, the most important one and fun one, are 3 words that you would use to describe yourself, and why those 3 specific words?
um, I know you gave me till the end. So I'm a mother.
Okay,
First off, I'm very proud of the 2 boys I have that are teenagers. Um, uh, confidence that I think that it has helped me a great deal to be able to take on risks and opportunities and go through failures as well when needed and go through the hard times. And I would say loyal to the people that have been good to me back, like that I have very long-term relationships, and even new people, like, you know, I think anyone that is in that circle of trust, you know, we have very strong, deep relationships.
I love it. Amy, thank you very, very much. I truly appreciate it. And continue to making a positive impact on people. Thank you very much.
Thank you.